Now, when people talk about Gohan's childhood in Dragon Ball, they usually summarize it like this. Quote, Piccolo trained him. He got stronger. He unlocked hidden power. But that's not really what happened. Gohan didn't just train, he really survived. And when you actually slow down and revisit that Saiyan Saga survival arc, it's way darker than most of us actually remember. Alright, section 1. Isolation and regret. Let's start with the part that I think people actually gloss over. Gohan was 4 years old. 4, okay? He was kidnapped by a former enemy, thrown into a wasteland, left alone with no food, no shelter, no parents, no explanation. Piccolo doesn't even stay with him. He basically abandons him. Now, from a writing perspective, this of course is genius because Toriyama isn't just making Gohan stronger, he's stripping him of safety. And the first thing we see from Gohan in that environment isn't rage, it's fear. He cries, he calls for mom, he doesn't understand why this is happening, he's completely lost. That wasteland imagery isn't just aesthetic, it really represents emotional exile, and that's important to focus on. He's isolated physically, but also emotionally. No one is coming to save Gohan. And when that realization hits, that's the true beginning of his trauma, in my opinion. Section 2, The Monster Within. Now, here's where it gets uncomfortable, because Gohan doesn't just have to survive the world around him, he also has to survive himself. Hence, when the Ozaru transformation happens for the first time for him, it isn't just a power-up, it's a complete loss of control. It's subconscious rage, it's generational violence, embedded in his DNA, again, out of his control. So when Gohan turns into a great ape, he doesn't choose to do so. He doesn't even remember it. But then at that point, he becomes a weapon, right? And the scariest part is he almost kills Piccolo, which is kind of morbid and hilarious in the whole thing. Like, the only person trying to actually train him and really quote-unquote save him was the same person that he almost inadvertently killed. That moment is huge psychologically because now Gohan isn't just afraid of the wasteland he's been left to, he's also afraid of what he might become. And Piccolo, well, you watch his expressions during that arc, he's not really a harsh teacher. He's trying to study Gohan, and he is studying Gohan, analyzing him, seeing the potential. But then at the same time, he's also seeing the danger, right? And then there's this like unspoken tension that is Gohan a child, or is he just a ticking time bomb that's going to end up destroying the planet? And then there's that Saiyan pod moment when he finally breaks out screaming because, you know, his dad was getting bullied and picked on. And it wasn't just Gohan's power in that moment. It was really his panic. That was his survival instinct. He was fight or flight mode. And at that point, when he broke out of that Saiyan pod, that was fight mode. And that's a child being forced into war before he even understands what war is. Think about it. If you were kidnapped at that age in Gohan's situation and then someone's doing something to your beloved one, you don't know what your reaction is. So Toriyama layers this arc with something so subtle, showing that Gohan's strength isn't really coming from confidence, it's coming from stress. And that's what I think is the heartbreaking thing about what he had to go through that I think fans today are actually, some fans are relatively ignorant in when they have their criticisms about Gohan. They don't actually take into consideration the trauma of his childhood, especially at that point. Section 3, the physical and mental toll. So now let's fast forward, right? Because what happens in isolation doesn't usually stay in isolation. That survival arc that follows Gohan for the rest of the series, why does he hesitate in some of his fights? Why does he struggle with his identity as he gets a little bit older? Why does he avoid training when there's no immediate threat as an adult? Because for Gohan, power isn't fun in the same way that it might be for Goku or Vegeta or some others. I think his power is more trauma triggered. Every major spike in strength comes from emotional overload. You look at Raditz, that response was rage. You look at Nappa, that response was desperation from Gohan. You look at Frieza, that response was grief, having watched all the innocent life Frieza and his men had slain on planet Namek. You look at Cell, that was suppressed anger exploding. And then even Beast Gohan, that transformation isn't hype for him like some fans may think if you're more newer to the series. It's really his protective instinct above everything else. He only unlocks that level when someone he loves is threatened. Now, do you notice the pattern? Gohan doesn't chase power again like Goku or Vegeta or other characters in the series. Power seems to chase Gohan. Power seems to find Gohan. Power seems to put Gohan into the worst situations possible and forces him to respond to that with an amplifier or an equalizer, right? That's what has routinely happened to him in the series. But that's a toll. That's a heavy toll Gohan is having to silently pay that he doesn't get enough respect for. Physically, he becomes one of the strongest beings, not just on planet Earth, not just in Universe 7, but possibly even in the multiverse as of now. Mentally, he's never really wanted that life, and we've known that since he's been a child. But when we see him as an adult, interacting with wildlife, studying, living peacefully, it's not weakness, it's healing. He's trying to build a world, guys, where his 4-year-old Gohan never has to exist again, because why would he ever want to go back to those traumatic points of his life? But Dragon Ball keeps on and keeps on and keeps on pulling him back, and every time he's forced to fight, we are reminded that his survival arc never truly ended. It's really just been a constant evolution of his character and who he is as the son of one of the greatest martial artists in all of Dragon Ball, which of course is Son Goku. Section 4, in closing, the real darkness. And I think this is what makes the arc special in its memory for us. Gohan's childhood wasn't really heroic, in my opinion. It was militarized. He was conditioned, trained by fear, motivated by loss, and praised for violence he never asked for to begin with, right? So when fans say, to some circles, Gohan should have stayed the main character, I think they're missing something. And keep in mind, for a personal tad bit, Gohan is my favorite character, but I never thought he should have remained the main character. He doesn't want to be the main character. He wants peace, man. He doesn't want the noise and the drama and the controversy that comes with constantly being involved in conflict. And that's an eternal conflict that I think he's still struggling with today, even post the superhero movie, because he has such overwhelming potential and then a personal desire to not disappoint his loved ones. But it's also what I think makes him one of the most psychologically complex characters in Dragon Ball. I think Gohan's intelligence actually goes over people's heads, not in every situation, but I think the fact that they just look at him as the son of Goku, and they're just like, you have all this potential. Why wouldn't you just want to be the strongest? Guys, that's just not everybody's motivation. And Gohan, as we all know, is very different from his father. Even if he has some personality traits similar to him, Gohan, what motivates him is completely different than what motivates Goku. And I've talked about that on this channel quite a bit. So in closing, looking at this from a more reflective and slightly intense perspective, when you rewatch the Saiyan Saga in your next Dragon Ball watch, don't just see the training, man. Try to actually put yourself in Gohan's position. Imagine that isolation. See a child that is surviving actual abandonment. Remember, Goku dies, okay? Like his father dies in the midst of all of that stuff happening. Put yourself in that position. Then you're dropped off in the middle of nowhere by this alien that's telling you, I'm going to come back and pick you up in 6 months, maybe, but you're on your own. Like, that's traumatic, man. See the fear behind his power. Because Gohan's survival arc during that saga, it wasn't about getting stronger. It was about enduring something that no child should have to endure in any situation. But maybe that's why his transformations always feel so different, because they don't feel like they're just ambition driven for the sake of power. They really feel like breaking points for Gohan as an entire being. His existence seems to predicate on him being able to respond to situations and to match them to the best of his ability. We see what happens when he was overpowered in the Future Saga, in Future Trunks' timeline, I should say, where he loses his arm and he eventually loses his life to the fight with the androids trying to protect Trunks. We see that even at that point, his evolution can only take him so far, but he was, one of the only, if not the only survivor left to do anything to stop the androids. Talk about isolation and being in no man's land again. Again, I'm going to keep saying it. I don't think people actually understand Gohan's character as much as they think they do. You can watch the show, you can watch the anime, you can read the manga. It doesn't mean you really understand the character, even if you've seen the episodes 100 times. Next time you rewatch it, really watch it from a more reflective perspective, not just, oh, this is Dragon Ball. Really try to understand the story Toriyama was trying to paint and tell you with Gohan.
How Pan could achieve the legendary Super Saiyan 4 in about 5 reasons. Number 1, Pan already shows abnormal power spikes as a toddler. This has been shown in Dragon Ball Super episode 43 for reference. She flies and projects energy without any training, and that obviously suggests an unstable, Broly-like latent reservoir, in my opinion. Number 2, hybrid Saiyans historically mutate under pressure. Gohan's explosive jumps in Dragon Ball Z episodes 120 and 121 that I've been referring to prove that hybrids evolve faster. That's just how it goes, making Pan a prime candidate for a rare mutation like a legendary Super Saiyan form. Number 3, the legendary Super Saiyan 4 feeds on emotional overload. Pan's unfiltered emotions that we've seen in GT and Dragon Ball Super, especially fearlessness and sudden bursts of excitement, really, in my opinion, mirrors the early Broly behavior that we saw at least from the DBZ Broly movie, not Dragon Ball Super. Number 4, her lineage includes obviously both Goku and Gohan, two Saiyans who broke multiple transformation rules. That genetic cocktail alone is going to set her up on the stage for a once-in-a-lifetime generation mutation. And last but not least, number 5, if Pan ever faces a life or death trigger, like Gohan's rage moment in Dragon Ball Z episode 25, I think her dormant power could actually erupt into a legendary style awakening instead of just a basic Super Saiyan transformation form. In short, her hybrid biology and her raw emotional power state puts her in the prime position to be one of the next candidates for something that we've never seen. Give me your thoughts, though. A legendary Super Saiyan Pan and that untold ascendant history. You're like, what is this guy talking about? Well, I think in this universe, Pan's legendary Super Saiyan power might come sudden to fans, but what if her ascension really had hidden history behind it that no one ever saw? Number 1, from birth, obviously Pan has displayed uncanny strength and ki control already. Dragon Ball Super episode 43 is a clear sign of that. She flies and she does her thing as a toddler, showing very early signs of that latent power and lineage that could quietly build over years, and we've already seen some of the culmination of that in the Dragon Ball Super superhero movie when she's sparring with Piccolo in the very beginning. She's already very quick for her age, and I think that can go unnoticed. But number 2, her hybrid Saiyan genetics, we talk about all the time. We've seen how that works with Goten and Trunks. It's going to obviously accelerate her growth beyond normal limits, just as Gohan surpassed Goku as a teen back in the Dragon Ball Z days, probably, I think, around 119, 121, something like that. Pan's unique combination, I think, of her DNA with Goku's DNA would already steadily mutate her power into legendary status because she already has that going for her. That's going to create a history of unseen breakthroughs that I think are going to be, to some fans, maybe like, whoa, but I love this new Pan's character. I love what Toriyama did with, his rendition of her character compared to what we saw in GT. So I'm excited that I think she'll continue on that trajectory. Reason number 3, the ritual requirements can technically be satisfied by her family alone. We saw in the Battle of Gods movie that a Saiyan with righteous intent can ascend through a ritual with 5 pure-hearted Saiyans. Pan's family lineup, which obviously includes Goku, Gohan, Goten, Trunks, and Vegeta, already checks every box for that. Reason number 4, Pan's emotional purity actually makes her a better candidate than most adults, whether you believe it or not. Super Saiyan God isn't rage-based, right? We know this. It's calm, focus, and harmony. Pan's innocence and fearlessness, shown in Dragon Ball Super episode 43 when she flies around the house effortlessly, fits Super Saiyan God's mental requirements better than any seasoned fighters that have been in that similar position. And last but not least, reason number 5, she could surpass Goku instantly the same way Gohan surpassed him as a teen. Once a hybrid breaks a limiter, their jumps are dramatic, as we see. If Pan mastered any sort of God ki early, she could repeat Gohan's explosive growth from Dragon Ball Z episode 184, but with a super divine scaling. So in short, Pan becoming a Super Saiyan God isn't just possible. Actually, based on the lore, she might actually be the most natural candidate to inherit that power next. Pan unlocking the legendary Super Saiyan form sounds impossible at first, but if you actually dig through Dragon Ball's history, the lore gives us some shocking clues that make it way more believable than you think. Reason number 1, the hybrid potential even greater than Gohan. Pan shows insane early potential in Dragon Ball Super as early as episode 43, when she's obviously baby Pan flying around the entire room effortlessly, something Gohan never did at her age. Hybrid Saiyans historically have the sharpest growth curve, so Pan's ceiling might be even higher if she's pushed under the right circumstances. Reason number 2, The ritual and emotional triggers. The legendary form is also tied to emotional overload, right? Now, in Dragon Ball GT episode 34, Pan snaps emotionally and knocks out grown opponents while she's obviously still a kid. You combine that with her superhero anger moments that we saw in the Dragon Ball Super superhero movie, and she's already clearly displayed the emotional spikes needed for Berserker-type Saiyan transformation similar to that of her father Gohan. What if Pan became the next Super Saiyan God? Here are 5 reasons why this might be more possible than fans realize. Number 1. Pan already responds to Godly Ki before she's even trained. In Dragon Ball Super Episode 3, Baby Pan reacts to Goku transforming into a Super Saiyan God, and most characters still can't even sense that form at first, but Pan literally lights up. That implies a natural affinity for Divine Ki. Reason number 2, she inherits Gohan's hyper potential, which has always surpassed full-blooded Saiyans like Goku and Vegeta, specifically referring to Dragon Ball Z episodes 120 and 121, when Gohan surpasses both Goku and Vegeta on planet Namek. Giving that same genetic ceiling access to God Ki would make Pan an instant prodigy, which isn't going to surprise most of us, similar to that of her father Gohan. Reason number 3, genetic pathways from Broly's lineage. Now, while Pan isn't obviously related to Broly, the mechanics behind the legendary energy aren't just exclusive to his bloodline. In Dragon Ball Super Broly, Paragus describes the form as a quote-unquote mutation. Now, mutations can theoretically occur in any Saiyan hybrid, meaning Pan could naturally manifest a similar energy output if triggered correctly. Reason number 4, ki control learned from Piccolo. Pan trains under Piccolo, one of the best ki control teachers in the franchise. In the superhero movie, Piccolo emphasizes controlled aggression and stable output, something Broly lacked. Pan learning structured ki discipline could allow her to enter a controlled legendary state rather than the uncontrollable berserker mode that we've seen Broly obviously experience. And last but not least, reason number 5, Gohan's potential unlocked themes obviously support this thesis. Gohan's entire arc obviously revolves around his hidden power. We know this. And from Gohan's anger burst in the earlier days of Dragon Ball Z, specifically episode 39, during this early days of, I'm going to say, the pre-Saiyan Saga, to in Dragon Ball Super, episode 90, when he reaches his ultimate form sparring with his father Goku. We can see that Pan inherits that same hidden reservoir of untapped potential, which means that legendary style metamorphosis isn't off the table if her emotions hit the right threshold for that to happen at some future point in the anime and or the manga. So if you combine Pan's hybrid ceiling, emotional spikes, Broly's style mutation potential, and Piccolo's training, obviously along with Gohan's hidden power and that lineage that it's tied to, the legendary Super Saiyan form suddenly isn't as far stretched as it seems for Pan here. It might actually be the ultimate evolution of her dormant potential. If you want anything, tweet. Let us know. Gohan became a god of destruction. Now, Gohan's strength is obviously immense, but could it rise to god of destruction levels? I guess it depends on who you ask. Number 1, I think his hybrid Saiyan physiology obviously makes the allowance of God Ki adaptation more simple than it appears, letting him learn destructive techniques, I think, faster than most mortals around him would be able to do. Number 2, I think Gohan's disciplined mindset from training under Piccolo and Whis, well, more so under Piccolo. Whis is another direction that they could go, but the balance is already there for discipline, right? You have that with destructive power, which obviously requires much restraint, much oversight. It would prevent catastrophic overreach while executing universe-level god strikes. I think Gohan's a perfect candidate for a god of destruction if he were to understand his role and how serious it would be to protect Universe 7 and his loved ones. What if Gohan inherited Vegeta's pride? Now, Gohan's gentle nature obviously defines him as a character, but what if he inherited Vegeta's pride instead? Now, number 1, I think he would fight with relentless intensity. Drawing from Vegeta's fierce determination we saw back in Dragon Ball Z episode 179, 180, and I think 181, Gohan would never hold back. He would push himself to extreme limits, even in casual battles, unlike the Gohan we see of today. Number 2, I think his personality would obviously shift more strategically. I wouldn't say it would be so dramatic that we wouldn't recognize Gohan, because there's still a bit of that Saiyan arrogance and pride in Gohan at certain moments, but not at all like it would be under this circumstance. You see, his pride would fuel his ambition, which would then turn Gohan from a reluctant hero into a calculated driven fighter, balancing power with tactical foresight. So I think in short, Vegeta's pride in Gohan would transform him into a warrior who fights for dominance as much as justice, which would more than likely be a more dangerous Gohan to anyone who would probably cross him, compared to the reluctant hero today who would rather study ants than actually train. But in the superhero movie, he found out the hard way he can't neglect his training. That's just my thoughts. What if Gohan mastered Ultra Instinct instead of Goku? Ultra Instinct is obviously about separating reaction from thought, and if you imagine Gohan achieving this, well, number one, I think his fighting style would optimize his energy and conservation while still being able to execute those automatic counters we see, and it would allow him to chain multiple high-speed attacks without burning through his stamina. I'm essentially using what I would deem Dragon Ball Super logic of stamina conservation with Dragon Ball Z related progress that we saw during the Cell saga and earlier. Now, number two, with that hybrid Saiyan durability Gohan has, he could push Ultra Instinct beyond the ceiling that we've seen. He could integrate more calculated offensive patterns into his instinctive flow, which I think would be natural for Gohan. He wouldn't just dodge, he would anticipate and punish openings with frame perfect key strikes, kind of like you see how he fights in Dragon Ball FighterZ. But Gohan, if he has to be calculated, is very dangerous. It's just he shares Goku's heart and he's a reluctant warrior. In this universe though, completely different. What if Gohan never stopped training after the Cell Saga? Now, his potential was unmatched during that time, but what if he had kept pushing past that point? Number one, I think he could have fully mastered instant transmission related attacks and rapid key adaptation. You would see something like this back in episodes, I think 184 to 191 of the Funimation dub of Dragon Ball Z. Anyways, his continuous training at that point would let him instantly read opponent energy outputs and adjust his attack strength accordingly. That's kind of similar to what Goku struggled to do until, I would say, the Buu Saga, more or less. And number two, I think Gohan's hidden potential activation would become more of a permanent thing instead of just a temporary thing. Instead of needing emotional triggers like the current Gohan needs, I think a different one under this thesis that I'm going on, he would actually be able to maintain his ultimate form at will, effectively giving him unlimited access to that Super Saiyan 2 level power without serious restraint. So, in short, I think a continuous post-Cell Saga training Gohan would turn into a controlled powerhouse with instant response capabilities and a permanent ultimate power compared to the temporary one. Let me know your thoughts. What if Gohan unlocked Super Saiyan 4 first? Now, we know that Super Saiyan 4 obviously amplifies the primal power of a Saiyan, and Gohan unlocking it first would obviously redefine the Saiyan's combat overall. Number one, I think those Saiyan genetics, those specific hybrid Saiyan genetics, are going to stabilize the Ozaru-derived ki. I think that's what's going to prevent the usual energy spikes and uncontrollable rage that you see from that transformation in Dragon Ball GT. This is going to allow Gohan to maintain Super Saiyan 4, I think, for extended battles without having serious power fluctuations. That's very important. Number two, he could technically integrate Super Saiyan 2 into Super Saiyan 4, kind of in a technique type of way, where the lightning fast energy blast Super Saiyan 2 and that instantaneous fight maneuver, his key sensing attacks, those would all essentially be enhanced by that primal multiplier. It would essentially give him a tactical vertical edge and versatile ability to use his raw power to actually change the battlefield in a way where Gohan can be a little bit more offensive instead of kind of playing a little bit more in the proactive defense role that we've seen him do in today's current manga and anime. So, in short, I think Gohan actually unlocking Super Saiyan 4 first would combine more of the primal Saiyan strength, and then he would use more of a Super Saiyan 2 level technique multiplier to keep himself in a state where he wouldn't have to burn through energy and can still keep up high energy attacks for a very extended period of time. And with Gohan's endurance, I think that'd be dangerous. It's just my thoughts, though. Let me know yours.
Welcome back to Kaioken Striker. I want to just
talk, and everyone's open to their opinion. So feel free to discuss, and just remember to be respectful in the comments if you decide to give your thoughts. When it comes to Gohan and Goku and how they approach training, now that we are having the anime return with the Galactic Patrol, we're going to see obviously Gohan at new heights, Goku at new heights, obviously in physical form. They're very different in how they go about training as martial artists. And I think for Gohan, something changed once he had Pan. I think having a daughter and having a whole nother human being to actually be responsible for has put him in a place where now he can start to tap into his own version of what we would say is a Goku or Vegeta version of, intense training. And granted, I don't know if we're going to see it at the same level, because Gohan is a scholar at the same time. Like, he's a true earthling. Like, he's a scholar, and then if he has to train in martial arts, he applies himself when it's necessary. And quite frankly, I think Piccolo is not going to let him slack anymore, given what happened in Revival of F, and then even in the superhero movie, the Gohan essentially was slacking twice in two completely different instances and scenarios. So you look at all that, how it's happened, and then Gohan finally hits that beast form transformation, and that puts him at the top, top 5 of the Dragon Ball power scale. And I know we talk about it. I know power scaling to some people is obsolete. It doesn't matter. I get it. But when we talk about just where it is, even in respect to the manga, if you think it's kind of ridiculous elsewhere, Gohan is considered to be very, very powerful now, given that new transformation. And it's something that he's clearly been working towards. And I think that was the biggest kind of reveal to me when I thought about it after that movie in that moment, and you just watch that over and over. It's like, that wasn't something that he had tapped into per se, on the basis that he wasn't trying to get to that point. He had been training. He had already said it back in Dragon Ball Super, I believe episode 90. I want to attain my own level of power in my own way and take my own path. And they stuck to that. Give them credit. They stuck to that. And he ended up doing that in that moment. And granted, it was obviously, the thought of the death of, Piccolo, and then, not being able to save everyone. It's a combination of all that obviously caused Gohan to snap. But it was something consciously he had already been training with behind the scenes, off screen, in his off time, I'm sure, when he wasn't doing his scholar duties and studying those new ants or bees or whatever he's working on with the S cells. I'm really interested to see if they pick that back up. And when we look at his father Goku, well, Goku has essentially remained the same. I would say when it comes to more downtime or slice of life related things, I think we saw more of that from Goku earlier in Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z, but now in Dragon Ball Super, it's like Goku just needs to be somewhere, maybe where something is happening, or there is like a forced break, especially if he's training at Beerus's planet with Whis. I'm glad that Whis is such a great stabilizer to the series, and I don't think his character gets enough credit for that, because he allows the pacing to go fast or to go slow or to tempo out, depending on what progress is being made amongst the martial artist training. And when we're talking about Goku here in comparison to his son Gohan, Goku has the edge of being able to work with one of the strongest beings in all of the Dragon Ball multiverse, as opposed to Gohan, who has a natural infinity for his raw potential, his strength, everything. If he had Goku's mindset, he certainly would be able to handle that. And I don't think Gohan's incapable. I think if he were to go to Beerus's planet and train with Goku and Vegeta for a couple of months, he would be right there. I mean, Broly's there. In fact, I'm surprised they haven't given Gohan the invitation, but I think Goku is a bit different, where he truly is just motivated about wanting to get better, but he is a 100% full-blood Saiyan. His son is a hybrid, right? Gohan has those human, earthly, emotional things that we all possess, whether we think it is that or not. You feel some type of way about something, or you feel nothing at all. Either way, it is something that human beings go through. And the point that Gohan has that, and then he also has this complete Saiyan, alien species DNA running through him, which is the Saiyan blood, right? The infinity to train in the same way as his father, the motivation, it may not be the same unless he is put in a situation where he has no choice. And if we just want to look at a small counterpart to this, which would be, let's say, the equivalent of Gohan's level. Trunks, Vegeta's son, being the other hybrid Saiyan, that's the closest comparison I can really make. If we want to talk about future Trunks or future Gohan, it depends. But either or, Trunks, obviously, because he has Vegeta's son, he has Vegeta and Bulma's stubbornness, both. The pride, the ego of Vegeta a little bit. But I think Trunks is able to humble himself in most instances when he needs to. And I think that also is a result of spending time around Gohan, right? That humility. Gohan loves the earth, you know, he loves nature, he loves animals. That's why he's studying what he's studying, right? And I think that rubs off on a lot of people in a good way when you can be around someone that's kind of grounded like that. But Trunks is motivated to stay in the gym. You know, Trunks is not someone that takes time off and you ask him, when's the last time you trained? And then he says, oh, it's been weeks or months, right? If you hear that from Gohan, you're probably not going to be surprised at that point. And I think that's kind of like the bummer thing about, you know, how much is he training now compared to what he was doing back then? I would like to hear that he's training every day like Goku, Vegeta, and anyone else. I mean, it even seems like Goten is training more or less every day when Chi-Chi allows him to do so. So when you look at all these things, but you're comparing Gohan and Goku, I think just they're so different fundamentally in how they view life. That is why they go about their way of gaining power to us as the viewer in completely different ways. And I think sometimes fans, get mad at, let's say, Gohan for not just training like Goku or another character. And I'm like, it will never be that way. You understand? Because that's not who Gohan is. Some people may argue he doesn't like to fight. I think Gohan does enjoy fighting. It just depends on the scenario and the case. I don't think he wants to fight every second of every day like Goku. No, but you know what I mean? I think Gohan enjoys fighting, especially when it's a challenge and he's really able to push himself. And the thing is, Gohan is super smart. He's one of the smartest characters in the show, believe it or not. So he knows what he's doing. If he's fighting consciously. Like, Gohan doesn't have to do things with his hands behind his back as if he's being held, at ransom, right? He could literally destroy the planet probably if he actually wanted to. I'm sure Gohan could, but he never would. Now, another planet that's not Earth, that's a different story depending on the context. But you know what I mean? Gohan has the power to do what he wants. So I would push back against people saying that he doesn't like to fight or he doesn't enjoy fighting. I think he does, but I think as a child and going into his teen years and that early adolescence, like, that was traumatic stuff, man. Most kids in the world will never go through that type of thing on a galactic scale, right? So put yourself in his shoes. Yeah, you could see the resistance or the distance of not wanting to train and be so gung-ho about your martial arts like your father is after going through things like that, right? But it's fascinating to me, as I would say this is probably section 2 of this discussion, that Gohan's desire to become the strongest, I don't even know if he has that conversation, right? Goku says he just wants to become strong, to continue to push past his limits, right? Which we know for Goku is essentially nothing. Like, Goku doesn't really have any limits. He'll hit a limit, but he'll push past that. So to me, he has no limits, and more or less the same for Vegeta. Gohan's motivation, now that Dragon Ball is coming back and we're actually going to be going forward with the story and it counts, which is, I think, freaking awesome. So thumbs up for that on this channel, right? We have to consider that Gohan's motivation may finally start to mature in a way where he understands he doesn't have to be like Goku and Vegeta when he comes to martial arts, but he has to understand it's his responsibility as a protector of Earth, close, very, very close. In fact, some people may say his real father, essentially is connected to the guardian of the Earth. Like, he needs to understand it's his responsibility with who he has in his life now. He has a daughter, he has family, he has friends. There are so many people Gohan loves and cares for. He has to understand it's his responsibility to make sure he's not caught slacking. Like, I can say for myself, as a guy that hits the gym 4 or 5 times a week, and I've been doing that for most of my life, and I'm 34 years old, you do that not just for, like, some people would say, I'm doing it for myself, and hear me out. I do it for myself. I'm getting my body, my mind right for what I need to do to try to get through life, to get through my missions, to our tasks, right? We all do that in our own way. But I'm also thinking about the people that I care about. I also want to make sure I'm in a position to be able to help them if they're unable to help themselves. It's not to say you're always so reliable in regards to just being there 100% of the time. Like sometimes Goku's not there. In fact, he's usually not there when the worst stuff is happening, right? But he's there when it matters. And because he has put himself through that training and that time and that consistency to being, one of the best ever, that is why he's always there to be in a position to take on the strongest villains. People can say that's plot armor, but if you understand philosophy, it's a very, very, very foundational character. What is the specific word I want to say? It's like it's really the integrity of who Goku is. Like that's always how it's going to be, more or less. So it's like you can write it off as plot armor, but like you could look at other characters in the show and it's like it just kind of happens. And I think Goku trains all the time, man. This dude is like, when you talk about somebody in the gym, Goku's the guy that doesn't leave the gym. He eats in the gym. He probably sleeps in the sauna room or something. And then he's back in the weight room. Like Goku doesn't leave the gym, bro. There's characters in other shonen anime. They just don't get it the same way. So I think Goku's just in a completely different class when it comes to that. Vegeta more or less is the same, but Vegeta could go with Bulma out with on a family trip like he did in that episode with Trunks. You know what I mean? Like Goku's not doing that unless Chi-Chi is dragging him or he physically is unable to like train. And I'm just saying that because I hate hearing the plot armor thing. I think it's just a really lazy excuse to say I don't really have like a critical thinking point to this whole that Goku kind of is him, and like Akira Toriyama has wrote his character in that way, and Goku goes through all his struggles, but he pushes through. He continues to train. He continues to adapt different mentors and follow as many great martial artists as he can in order to get himself to push past his limits once he hits that wall, because that is just what motivates him. Like I said, Gohan's not the same. Gohan, when it comes to mentorship, I think we look at a relationship with him and the Elder Kai when the potential unlocked ritual essentially was happening. Gohan was really impatient with that in the beginning until he realized the Elder Kai's thing actually worked. Once he had his little tantrum, right? Stop messing around, Kai. And he ends up snapping, and then he realizes, oh, snaps. Like I'm like juiced up. Like, whoa, this thing actually worked. Okay, I apologize, Sensei. Like, you know what I mean? Like he realized in that moment that, okay, this thing actually worked and I need to have more patience. Goku to me is someone that understands that it will take time for him to reach the levels he wants to reach. He's never really complained about not hitting a certain power level as fast as he wants to. He may be bummed about maybe a certain technique or a certain new trick he's working on not going exactly how he wants, but he's never really bummed about, oh, I didn't reach, like you've never heard him complain about not reaching Super Saiyan 3 fast enough or Super Saiyan Blue. Like you've never heard that. So again, I think these are just really, really fundamental character differences in Gohan and Goku specifically, and I'll probably do a completely separate standalone one for Vegeta later, as he deserves his own. But I hate that people try to use Goku's way as a means to derail or devalue Gohan and how he approaches martial arts. Guys, he was traumatized as a kid. We have to consider, had he not gone through all of those situations as a kid, but he was in a position where he could have been in a safe environment sparring with his father, he may have grown up having a completely different relationship with martial arts and training and fighting. And again, I still think he enjoys it in the modern timeline of where the story and his character is at today. But if we take a timeline where maybe Akira Toriyama doesn't have Gohan involved and he's kind of, kept safe away from all of Earth's events somehow, and then he's just training with Goku in a safe environment where he doesn't have to go through these traumatic things, maybe his relationship with fighting is completely different, right? Maybe he grows up, and I can't even say Goten because Goten is 7 years old when Super Buu is like eating his family and his mom and turning them into candy. But like Goten is just different. And then he's around Trunks all the time who is older. So Goten would have lost his fear a long time ago, I think, in regards to what's considered traumatic. That's just always usually how it goes with the younger siblings, right? Gohan, on the other hand, didn't really have a sibling. If he did, and maybe an older one, perhaps that dynamic would have been different. Perhaps he would have a different affinity for fighting and he would be more motivated to train like Goku if he was in that mind space. But I think just who his character is now, he just hasn't had the opportunity to be in that space. But given what's happened through Superhero, Cell Max, and what we know it's going to be shown, at least in the anime format of the Galactic Patrol arc and saga, we're going to be able to probably see some differences. I'm sure they're going to do a couple things differently than they did in the manga. We'll see how Gohan responds, and if I think the light bulb has clicked for him that, yeah, this is a thing you have to keep up with, bro, for like the rest of your life. Like, it's not that you have to, again, be in the gym 24/7, but there's always going to be a big, bad, stupid dude trying to come to the party and mess it up for everybody. You just got to be ready to put that guy down when the time comes, right? I think that's the mindset Gohan has to understand he needs to keep, because it's not going to change. And he lives in a planet, in a universe that always seems to be the center of focus for all of the crazy stuff happening. So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on this. That's more or less everything I really wanted to touch on here, from beginning to end. And I think it was very important to give you guys a foundation of, again, the differences and who their characters are, which you might as well cut down the middle and paint one side this way and the other side that way. Like, despite them being family, despite them being Saiyans and father and son, they are two different beings, yet you can still see similarities based off of personality traits and quirks and things like that. But I think sometimes people think, oh, Gohan is Goku's kid, so he should totally just have like the same drive. Like, Trunks pretty much has the same drive as Vegeta. Is like, it doesn't work like that even in real life, bro. Like, you know what I mean? So yeah, hopefully you guys have enjoyed. Make sure to subscribe to the channel for more discussion content such as this. I'll be trying to do these videos 1 to 3 times a week usually. I want to focus on just more better driven content and topics that focus around the characters in the show and their philosophy when it comes to what they're doing, not just necessarily who's the strongest and why they're the strongest. There's so many little things that Dragon Ball gives you in context and mini stories that I think the casual fan honestly misses completely. And that's what obviously I'm going to miss about Akira Toriyama's personal touch to the story. He was so instrumental in putting so many different philosophies and just things of life that if you're not hearing these things, you're going through life really not knowing as much as you think you know. And I think Dragon Ball has been so great in being able to instrumentally teach a lot of us great things about life, taking care of yourself, standing up to bullies, taking care of your family, keeping your body strong, trying to keep your mind clear. These are very, very important things, obviously, in this time of all times, right? To keep ourselves grounded and to try to remember that. So like I said, if you guys enjoy, you can always feel free to let me know any topics, any ideas you have. Of course, this is a judgment-free zone, but we want to keep it respectful, so always remember that. So next time, Kaioken Striker, as always, stay tough, stay strong, stay in the fight. I'm there with you all the way, brother. Have a good one.